Good evening and welcome to For the Love of Words, the July 2019 edition. With me for the interview this evening is Joanne Sheehan. She is our musician, and I'd love to be able to say she's our guitar player, but she actually plays a multitude of different instruments. Good evening, Joanne.
Hi, how are you?
Could you tell the audience what instruments you play?
Well, I started with mandolin, and then I took violin and guitar, ukulele. I can play beginner piano. I'm not a big piano player, but I know my way around. I also play auto harp, a multitude of rhythm instruments, a little bit of xylophone, some drums. Everything I've tried except for woodwind instruments, I think I can, any stringed instrument I can get around.
Now, you're an Easton native, correct?
Yes.
Yes, and you went to Oliver Ames High School?
Yes, my entire family and my cousins next door all went to Oliver Ames.
But you didn't start off from a point of view of a career as a musician. You started in a different field. What was that?
Correct. Well, I started as a simple assembly worker on an assembly line building car radios, and ended up going to school and becoming a process engineer with also a quality engineering background, working for Motorola for 20 years.
So how did music enter into this formula?
Well, I've always loved music. My sister and my mother and I used to play out when I was 10 years old. My mother and sister sang, and I would harmonize with them. We used to play at the Old Plainsman Club in Plainville and fill that big function room as a child. So my father decided to send me to lessons with a very famous gentleman called Fortunato Menga. And as a child, I had no idea what an amazing Italian player he was. And he brought up a son, Robert Menga, who played he was the first violinist for the Philadelphia Philharmonic. And I think of him every time I pick the mandolin up because he taught me many old Italian songs. Some I don't even remember the name, but I can play them.
Still play them?
I still play them.
And how old were you when you started taking mandolin lessons?
I was 12, and my sister was 15, and I played for 3 or 4 years under Mr. Menga. And I don't know how my father afforded it because we didn't really have very much as growing up. But still to this day, I don't know how he afforded lessons for us, but it was the best thing he's ever did. It's the best gift I've ever had.
And will you be playing just the guitar tonight or for us, or will you be playing different instruments?
I would like to play the mandolin because it's not a popular instrument. I hold a music night the first Friday of every month at my house, and I'll have 8, 10, 12 guitars. So I do get to play my mandolin then, and also violin then. And if I have some time, I'll play the mandolin and the guitar.
I saw you tuning, when I arrived tonight, I saw you tuning the guitar. That's why I thought you were going to be doing the guitar.
Well, I might do a little of each. It depends on how the time goes.
Certainly.
And I want to promote the Italian music on the mandolin, though, because it is unique.
Yeah, we don't have many musicians that come to the show who do play the mandolin,
No,
so it would be a treat.
If you ever have one, you need to tell me.
We have one tonight.
Yeah.
You have a band.
Yes, I have a band called the Token Nickel, and it's named that because on my first Friday of the month ensembles, when we get together, I have a big nickel, and we pass it around the room. It's like a token nickel, and when you have the nickel, you get to choose the song you want to play, and you share the chords with the room, and everyone participates. So we have big jam sessions the first Friday.
Is there a set number to the members of the Token Nickel? Or?
Yes, there's 5 band members. We have a bass, and female vocalist along with myself. We do some nice harmonies. A good drummer who's been on cable TV before, Frank Hollab, so I know he's an artist. He's also a drummer. Wayne Champa, Christine, and myself. So there's 5 of us. And then we have 2 newcomers, Steve Hubachek and Sandy Randon. So there's 2 more guitar players that are recent. So we do want to get out there and make some people happy. We're getting pretty good now, not
So
after playing a couple of years. So.
Do you have any gigs lined up that you're...
We don't have any gigs lined up. It's been a tough time for me. I just did an addition on my home, so it's...
Right.
You know how long a process
Yes.
that can be.
Yes, it certainly can be.
So I'm just finishing that up, but I'm starting to look now. The storm has settled, and I want to get those guys out there. So
Well, that's good.
so
That
the
would be great.
practice is not in vain.
No, no.
We need to show that.
That would be great.
Yes.
So at the present time, my understanding is you're a full-time music teacher. Is that correct?
Not so much full-time. I'm unable to work full-time right now. But in the afternoons, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I have children after school, and I have some adults as well. I have from age 3 on the piano to age almost 80, just started on piano too. And
Now, if someone wanted to contact you, do you have a social media website that they could look you up and get a hold of you? Has that got your phone number on it and
I
things of
don't
that?
have a website, but I do have a Facebook
page?
under Joanne Sheehan. And I can give my phone number out to anyone.
Is it on the Facebook page?
It probably isn't.
Oh.
It's probably not on the Facebook page, but it's 508-238-2237 is the house phone. And
And which instruments, again, which instruments do you give lessons for?
on mandolin, violin. I just started a little girl on viola, guitar, beginner piano. I cannot do advanced piano, but I know 2 nice advanced piano teachers that I can do the first couple of years for piano, and then I would transfer to another
And
pianist.
you give lessons to not just little children, but to people of all ages?
All ages, yes, and with some great results too, because some people don't realize that music exercises the brain so much that it makes connections from the right and left side of your brain that help you process information faster. And they're finding more and more with the new tools and technology they have nowadays. They're really saying that this is a proven fact. And I do have one student that has finally confirmed, yes, I am doing much better with my speech and with my thinking. And it's really something to be considered.
Now, when you give music lessons, I understand that you also have your students do jam sessions at some point in time?
Well, that's
How
what
does
we're
that work?
doing this summer. I have 3 jam sessions set up, one for Monday evening, and it's an hour and a half, and then 2 morning sessions on Tuesday morning, and 2 afternoon sessions on Wednesday.
So how far down the road with their lessons do the students have to get before you can get them into a jam session?
You don't need a lesson.
Oh.
You can come without any lessons and play rhythm. I can, depending on who comes, I'll select songs that have from entry level, banging on a drum, or doing xylophone, just 2 notes, to someone doing a very smart melody and adding a cello, piano, whatever the instrument is, we work it into the song, along with singing. So
Yeah, it sounds like a fun time.
it is a fun time.
Well, we look very forward to having you perform this evening for
thank
us.
you.
And whether it's just the mandolin or the mandolin
I don't know
and
what I'm
guitar.
going to be up to tell you the truth.
Okay,
I had practiced with a couple of people, and they weren't able to make it, so I'm switching from practicing the harmonies to all the
Well,
melodies.
the spotlight will be solely on you this evening. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much. It was
nice to meet you.
a pleasure. Yes. So this is a song, one of the first songs that I learned from my teacher, Mr. Fortunato Menga. And unfortunately, I was 10 or 12 at the time, and I've lost his music, but it's still in my mind, and I don't know the name of the song. So if anyone out there knows the name of it, please give me a call on the number you heard earlier. So it goes something like this. So, don't ask me how I remembered it, but when you take a song like that and learn it when you're very young, you never lose it. And even when you're older, when you have the music, you're still able to do that. So that was one of my better songs that I do. There's a song that I wrote. I do like to write, as some people know, and I don't have many songs, but this one came to me after my father had passed away. I stood on the porch and I looked into the woods, and one of the things that we always did was we walked in the woods together. And I really didn't write this song. The words kind of just came to me from somewhere. And it goes something like this. It's called The Visit. So the portion, the first part of it is my singing, and the instrumental portion in between my words are what he says back to me. And it's not always the same thing. Those words change. So this is how it goes. I see your shadow in the woods, in the woods, even though you're far away, far away. I see your footsteps close to mine, close to mine, even though you're far away, far away. Please come home, stand by me, stand by me, don't be so far away, far That was the visit. So, maybe I shall do a song on the guitar. All right. So this is a song written by the Everly Brothers. My brother is in North Carolina, and we play this a lot together. It's an Everly Brothers one, and him and I harmonize well. Unfortunately, it's me, just the melody. So it's called So Sad by the Everly Brothers. We used to have good times together, but now I feel them slip away. It makes me cry to see love die. So sad to watch good love go bad. Remember how you used to feel, dear. You said nothing could change your mind. It breaks my heart to see us part. So sad to watch good love go bad. Is it any wonder why I feel so blue when I know for certain that I'm losing you? Remember how you used to feel, dear. You said nothing could change your mind. It breaks my heart to see us part. So sad to watch good love go bad. You couldn't beat the Everly Brothers. Back in the 60s and the 70s. Let's see. And how about an old country song? This is one my dad used to sing to my mom, and sometimes she'd sing it back to him. And it's called I Really Don't Want to Know by Eddie Arnold. And it's one of my, I have to play it no matter where I go, at least once, sometimes twice. So here it is, how many arms? Oh, I really don't want to know. How many arms have held you and hated to let you go? How many, I wonder, but I really 'cause darling, I love you so. How no wonder, I wonder, though I really don't want to know. So I guess we have just a couple minutes left, 3, and I'll try to do a little fiddle tune for you. I did play back in to a camp that I go to in Saugerties, New York, and you might have heard of the song "Ashokan Farewell." So here's a little piece of that I will try to do. So. Thank you, and again, my phone number is 508-238-2237. I'm open for lessons and some ensembles through the summer, and lessons in the fall and through the first of the year. So give me a call. I would enjoy teaching any age, mostly string instruments and some basic piano. And thanks to ECAT, they did a great job.
Good evening and welcome to the second half of the July edition of For the Love of Words. With me this evening as our poet is Eileen Cleary. Welcome, Eileen.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Let me just tell our audience that you are a graduate of Lesley University and you have your MFA from the Solstice program at Pine Manor. You are also, or were also, a 2016 and a 2018 Pushcart nominee. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Let's talk about what I know is got to be near and dear to your heart, your first book, Child Ward of the Commonwealth, which is due to come out next month.
Yes.
Could you tell the audience a little bit about what the theme of the poems is in the book?
Well, it concerns being a foster child in Massachusetts. And so basically that's the main theme of the book, but then there are also other poems that reach out beyond that into adulthood that are just more lyrical pieces.
Will you be reading some of those poems from Child Ward tonight?
I will, yes.
And that's going to be published by Main Street Rag, which is a really, really good poetry publisher. I'm very familiar with what they've put out.
Oh, that's nice.
Let's talk about something that I also know is near and dear to your heart, and that's the Lily Poetry Salon of Needham, Massachusetts.
Yes.
Why don't you tell the audience, you're one of the co-founders, why don't you
Yes.
tell the audience a little bit about how that all got started?
Well, I have 2 MFAs, one from Leslie and one from Solstice. And when I went to Leslie, I met a wonderful man who's almost like a brother to me named Manny Iyer. And he's a poet, and he's a deaf-blind poet, and loves to hear poetry in his home and have readings, but it's difficult for him to get out and enjoy the readings. So we bring a poet and to read, and then have a Q&A and some refreshments each month. And poets will read from their new books.
Okay. Now, how is he able to hear them if he is deaf?
Well, a person can be declared deaf and still have remote hearing
Okay.
a little bit, so he has amplifier in his ear.
Okay.
Yeah.
In addition to the Lily Poetry Salon, you also are the editor of the Lily Poetry Review.
Yes.
And you are going to start, as I understand it, the Lily Poetry Press.
Yes, we've already accepted a few manuscripts.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Very good. What type of poetry does the Lily Poetry Review look for?
I think we like a wide range of poetry. In the review, we include lyrical and narrative poetry, and we like form and free verse. Just anything that's well written and interesting and enjoyable.
And how would someone submit anything to the Lily Poetry Review?
We accept poetry and flash fiction and art through Submittable. So
it's an online?
Yes.
So it's at lilypoetryreview.com, is that where we go to? Or?
Well, lilypoetryreview.blog is the website.
Okay.
But then if anyone goes to Submittable, and people who submit flash fiction and poetry are very familiar with going online, and they usually have Submittable accounts. If they just hit Lily Poetry Review, it should come right up.
Okay. Now,
And there's no fee to submit.
one of the things that I noted when I was reading some of your poems in preparation for tonight's interview is that the ending of several of your poems, they sometimes alternate between being rather sad, and I'm thinking of the poem 16, and how that ends. I don't know if you're going to read that tonight or not, but that was one of them. And another one was Bottle Caps, which has sort of an ending that made me smile anyway when I read it. And I read it right after I read 16, so
you needed
I
it.
needed a smile. But you also have poetry, and the reason I'm asking these questions is I'd like you to tell me and the audience how you sort of arrive at, if you can, because I know the muse acts in strange ways, mysterious ways, but you also have a poem called FDR. And in an interview I read, you said that there wasn't any meaning necessarily to the letters FDR. It was meant to be a mystery. So I guess what I'm asking again is, how do you arrive at deciding if a poem is going to end on a sad note or a happy note, or is it just a matter of the process of writing, or is it the goal you have in mind?
I think it's more the process. I never have an intention, a determination of how the poem will end. I feel like this is going to sound absurd, but a lot of times poems write themselves and we're just the vehicles
No, it doesn't
for
sound
them.
absurd.
So a lot of times the poem will tell me. I'll ask the poem, or the poem will tell me how it ends. Yeah.
So how did you are a nurse, or at one
I
point?
am.
Yeah, you still
Yes,
are a
I
practicing
still-
nurse.
yes.
So how did you get into poetry to begin with?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. Well, when I was a child, I wrote poetry, but then didn't write any afterwards. And at one point in my nursing career, when I was going to study a little bit more about advanced nursing practice, I was also interested in writing grants for to start healthcare in the South for small towns that were impoverished. And I was thinking, how do I even write a grant for healthcare, and how do I do this research? And so I went to Simmons, and I took a course on medical ethics and research. And at that time, after we heard some really atrocious experiments that were performed on human beings without their consent, the instructor said, now, I'd like you all to write a poem. And, you know, you can imagine a bunch of scientists and nurses, we're like, want us to write a poem? But when I started at the top of the page, something happened, and by the time I hit the bottom of the page, I knew I could never live my life without writing poems. So
And how long ago was that?
it was probably 5 years ago. Yeah.
So you sort of devoted yourself to writing poetry over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Now, I noticed again in doing my preparation for this interview that you answered an interesting question. If you were on an island and you could only have one poem on the island, you were asked what poem would that be, and you answered it would be W.B. Yeats' Leda and the Swan. Why that poem?
I think because of the music, and because it encompasses almost everything in terms of not only the music and the form, but the beauty of it, the tragedy, and then also a little bit of love, and all the complexity that comes with
So
it.
if we put W.B. Yeats in your Dead Poets Society, who else would be in that society with him?
Oh.
As an influencer of your
Of
work.
my work, Emily Dickinson, absolutely. Maybe a little bit Sylvia Plath.
I can see that, given 16, I can
Yeah.
see that.
William Carlos Williams for his imagistic ways. Just so many.
So-
Robert Hayden.
So if we go to a living poets society, which living poets, if any, influence you?
Kathy Nilsson is a poet in Cambridge. She influences me quite a bit. Laurent Bosselar. She's the poet laureate of Santa Barbara now, which was so exciting.
Good.
A person who was living up to a short time ago, Lucy Brock-Broido, is a huge influence in my work. But there are hundreds.
So
Yeah.
in that same interview, you were asked, which would you choose, the ability to fly or invisibility? And I know you chose invisibility because you said you couldn't carry others with you if you had the ability to fly. But I thought that invisibility, if I were to expand on your answer, wouldn't that be a great characteristic for a poet or writers in general, simply because writers are observers
Yes.
and in some detail, so we're much more so poets. So that would give you the opportunity, I assume, to observe people. I assume you do observe people, do you not?
I do,
And the invisibility would give you that talent that much greater.
right? Do it under the cloak.
Now, do you have readings coming up at any point in time in the future?
I have several readings which I'll have on my website, but the one that's coming up is on September 14th, the New Hampshire Poetry Festival. I'll be on 2 panels, and then there'll be readings as part of those panels.
And where is that located?
That's in Henniker, New Hampshire.
And what are the panels that you will be on?
One will be about authentic voice and poetry with Reggie Gibson, Kevin McClellan, Robbie Gamble, and myself. And
Okay.
then another one will be, I know this is way out there, but it's not that far out there. How being othered in childhood affects writing and publishing life.
And what do you mean when you say being othered?
Being raised in a way that's not considered traditional.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So, and so it affects publishing and writing in the sense of what we will allow ourselves to write and publish. And it affects each person differently. And Kristen Hill, Jennifer John, and Lisa Mason Sullivan and myself will be on that panel. So.
Now, are there any other readings that you have coming up, or?
I don't know if I could list them right now. I have a couple,
Okay.
a little down the road.
Okay. So I will just leave the interview with this thought, that you also said that you find inspiration in life's beauty and suffering. Now, I'm just wondering, there's no inspiration in the things in life that bring joy?
Oh, there is, but absolutely.
But you didn't,
Yeah.
Well,
I
that
think-
didn't make your quote.
I don't know. That was probably 5 years ago. But I do think there's a lot of inspiration and joy. Absolutely. And I think that is part of what beauty is.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. And I'm sure that the audience tonight will hear all of that, the beauty, suffering, and joy in
I
your
hope
poems.
so. I
And hopefully
hope
they'll be
so.
inspired by it.
I hope so.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much for being here.
Thank you. I'm going to read some poems from Child Ward of the Commonwealth. And the book is really about what it exactly sounds like being a child in foster care in Massachusetts. But hopefully it encompasses more humanity than that. 1. What's given and what's taken in each one for one? A name, a home, an address, and whom to address as whom. A family gone, a last name gained, a group of people bonded or not by blood or name. The lowest number, half of 2, single, a certain one, a joke, a story, or just one more collective one. I'll show you another one. Most we know have just one childhood. How many have you? 1. On what to forget. Start out 4 years old under a table. A silent movie, your brother's legs rushing past, then the Afghan he uses to smother your sister's flames. Melting skin and sheets, hangs from what once was arm. No, no, don't see your sister's arm as arm. Only the skin as it drapes, skirting the length of her lower body, nearly touching brown linoleum. Smoke fills in the gaps, not your mother. She didn't leave that pan to boil, didn't leave her children under that porch, hide and go seeking through its lattice. Ready or not, here I come, into the kitchen she wasn't even there. Grow older, grow smaller, because you did nothing but hide under that table, dumb like a 4-year-old girl, naming your own scars, sore, ugly, sewn on your shin. Come out from under that table. Nobody's sure how long underneath it you were, lifting your own scabs while your sister scratched pigskin grafts, stayed in hospital for months, returning home with enough stuffed animals to fill up the bath. And you, they told you, you drowned them all. When the social worker came to take me, Mom wears a sundress in December, rocks herself to sleep. I watch over myself, teach myself to speak. I say lipstick or Piscetti, poke holes in my tights, pull snarls from my hair, toss and catch a puppy on the stair. I hide in an attic, clamber through the halls, map my slapdash kingdom in crayon on the walls. The neighbors dial phones, shut behind their doors. They call me feral, are they scared by the poor? My dog Sheba snarls, I mother may I on the lawn. Two giants step forward, then fee, fi, fo, I'm gone. Foster kid. Ask her name and where she lives. She answers Burke, Fitzpatrick, Shaughnessy, old family, new family. Wake up, we're home in Rockland, Salem, Braintree. Her brothers gone or born last week. Mothers, aunties, or ma'ams. Leanie slurps noodles straight from a pan, stuffs liverwurst through porch slats, swallows meatloaf, thin sliced and too fast, while the real share dinner in the next room. She's 4, 7, or just turned 10, never an only, mostly an extra, always between. In the next town over, it's October again. This poem that I'm going to read is a little difficult to hear, but I just want to let you know that the person in the poem is fine. Toaster. He's my big little brother, and we're playing dolls. He giggles. The babysitter swoops. John, when will you get serious? She jams Johnny's hand into the toaster while I freeze. Bury my own unbuttered fingers into the pockets of my jumper. He screeches like a barn owl, hissing and flapping his arms against the brute walls of the too small room. Tonight, we ready dinner. Johnny hands me a potato, giggles, his fingertips feathers lifting in flight. The Taxidermist's Guide to Preserving Lonesomeness. Prepare to stuff and mount her untouched fur. Make a plaster cast of a solitary sheep in an otherwise wool-free field. You'll need to picture isolation, a blue whale no other whale can hear, the last fringe-limbed tree frog ending in a lab who keens for her once living mate. Don't tear her skin, which keeps better in cold and dark. Stitch together seams of cell walls and rainfall. Pin her lips over her teeth. Trim with sagebrush, ledges, leaves. First, Germantown summer without my mother. Crisscross applesauce on the lawn's edge. I want to feel her core, to hold her, soft dough of her. Bring her, dear God, let her recognize me, her littlest one, except for 2, especially when she reaches the blacktop outside Snug Harbor School, or the cafeteria after catechism held at St. Boniface's, where Mrs. Sweeney swears you made the stars and Polly draws the most real sun because he knows yellow and red make orange, and he always lets his live half off the page. Foster care definition. Baked macaroni and cheese on a plate too high to reach, or cupcakes only seen on Mr. Rogers, or it's an empty red, white, and blue Wohelo box where I keep the beads earned as a bluebird at meetings where I never stayed long enough to fly up to Fire Girl. Or it's a trip to the zoo where I learn the zebra knows its herd because patterns dazzle their family names across the green. And I want my name to dazzle too. I begin to wish myself an elephant. At St. Boniface's, St. Mary's, St. Joseph, St. Francis, back to my 3rd grade report on pachyderms, how I pray, make me an elephant god. Let my skin wrinkle over my hide, not for the size, not for the skin. I want to be family. Let me in. We follow cloud breaths to school, finger our names on Arctic panes, ad-lib girl roles and family scenes. In unpatched Levi's and double-thin shirts, we hopscotch the outskirts, pray for home until our knees turn berry pink and the votives puddle. Green Harbor, Ocean Bluff. A paddle of ducks rafts the barged harbor. A few gulls assemble to scavenge. I scavenge with my eyes. They're shrill and fill their guts with killfish. I watch until green flies bite, force my feet home, over sea stars, over wood drift, sift of all deserted things. Leanie's Ginny doll speaks. God calls me by name just under my paint-brushed hair, a refugee from the state of empty air, more than human model of human, more than polymer and glue. I'm not alone, but Leanie's own. Trace the fault lines along my head, shoulders and hips from which we're all stitched. My right leg in the corner of a room we used to know, both of us taken when there was nowhere to heat milk. On my 2-year-old brother gone missing. Not his ride-on pony, but its print on the grass. Galloping white space, gathering its fields, knicker whisper, thunder, burn. Once, at Angelo's grocery, I reached for a small boy. Niobe, at least, had a corpse for each. We thought, perhaps Rhode Island or a border town nearby. But the stars on his face haven't mapped his way back. Turn off the afternoon, then the sky. I'm thinking of re-entering my body. Well, it's young enough to forgive me. This shell left to wither or swell, mute mostly, except for patellas screaming on church pews I'd dragged them to, then shifted from, as if they'd said some unsayable thing. We'll have this reunion before it thinks I've died and follows. Well, it's open to my custody, keeping its musts of eat and drink. When I re-enter, I like to think, we'll scribble its history, its journey erasable without the ink of me. I'll scan over its topography, accept its mass, its masses, move in on Tuesday evening, find it fit for habitation. I'm going to read a poem for my nephew, Joseph, who died many, many years ago of a heart condition that some infants get. And I remember being on the bus in Brockton when I heard that he had died, and I couldn't understand why the buses were running, and I couldn't understand why the restaurants were open. And it took me a very long time to write a poem for him. But this is Wolverine and Infant Torso for my nephew, Joseph Montoya. The day you died, my sister held you to her shoulder while a redwing trilled. Sick heart, sick heart. I'll never understand how the city breathes with you, cyanotic, or why a wolverine nested in your chest. My mind preserves you like the thrush buried in a Norwegian snowbank, its organs intact 4,000 years since flying the Stone Age. All of my younger selves live inside me. The children do commune with one another. Most go some backwoods where they would have built a stick house had they dwelled within their own bodies. Do not ask them to hold one another. They are shy as trillium, bowing their faces to the earth. Somewhere within a green echo and ash morning, seeds of me breed a baggy cloak of dusk, which extinguishes me the way the northeast wind snuffs matchlight. And just a few more. What Jane Doe knows. One evening, call it Wednesday, I escaped into another dusk. Did I mention outside had been off limits for so long that it no longer pertained to me? I couldn't taste the rain. Please, don't close to me like sliding glass, pretending not to see me. Me, the girl who floats through screen windows like a child's voice tinning the lawn. Did I call too late? On each porch a face I don't recognize. None can look at me. That's how I know I'm gone. Come back, Jane Doe. Always walking under some bird-sized hole of sky, sounding alarms taken as songs. While you scratch through leaf litter and debris, the paper wasp you killed last week flew away into that sky in which some small plane has written, "Marry me," above the missing child posters plastering the equinox. Jane, forgive us. Come home. I'd like to read a poem for Lucy Brock-Broido, The Beloved Sphinxes. Who could bear to tell them anyway, yet it's impossible to break the news beforehand or after. To her Maine Coons left a curl unseen in the satin underlayers of a lined basket. Or climb a tree city in her bedroom where breathing should let them press their foreheads against the heel of her hand. None of the new hands know that routine. There's been no lessening of their prowess, but when her cats reach a height higher than they should leap in their stockinged feet, say, from the red pleated throw to the kitchen island in its cool water, no smooth voice likens them to gazelles, and no sound at all from their long-haired mother. And I'm going to finish with a poem called Potatoes, Their Various Moods. Your hand hesitates to reach for potatoes alive on your countertop until you cook them. Bless the tubers who've known all along this life was not their own. Coffins were hard to come by during the famine. We're all foxfire or timber decay. We are not. What I mean is, it's June. Let's see how the weather holds. Thank you.